At their first stop before the sun sank, Lan began teaching the boys what to do with the weapons they carried. He started with the bow. After watching Matt put 3 arrows into a knot the size of a man's head on the fissured trunk of a dead leather leaf at 100 paces, he told the others to take their turns. Perrin duplicated Matt's feat and Rand, summoning the flame in the void, the empty calm that let the bow become a part of him, or him of it, clustered his 3 where the points almost touched one another. Matt gave him a congratulatory clap on the shoulder. "Now if you all had bows," the warder said dryly, when they started grinning, "and if the Trollocs agreed not to come so close you couldn't use them." The grins faded abruptly. "Let me see what I can teach you in case they do come that close." He showed Perrin a bit of how to use that great bladed axe. Raising an axe to someone, or something, that had a weapon was not at all like chopping wood or flailing around in pretend. Setting the big apprentice blacksmith to a series of exercises, block, parry, and strike, he did the same for Rand and his sword. Not the wild leaping about and slashing that Rand had in mind whenever he thought about using it, but smooth motions, one flowing into another, almost a dance. "Moving the blade is not enough," Lan said, "though some think it is. The mind is part of it, most of it. Blank your mind, sheepherder. Empty it of hate or fear, of everything. Burn them away. You others listen to this too. You can use it with the axe or the bow, with a spear or a quarterstaff, or even your bare hands." Rand stared at him. "The flame in the void," he said wonderingly. "That's what you mean, isn't it? My father taught me about that." The warder gave him an unreadable look in return. "Hold the sword as I showed you, sheepherder. I cannot make a mud-footed villager into a blade master in an hour, but perhaps I can keep you from slicing off your own foot." Rand sighed and held the sword upright before him in both hands. Moraine watched without expression, but the next evening she told Lan to continue the lessons. The meal at evening was always the same as at midday and breakfast, flat bread and cheese and dried meat, except that evenings they had hot tea to wash it down instead of water. Tom entertained them evenings. Lan would not let the gleeman play harp or flute, no need to rouse the countryside, the warder said, but Tom juggled and told stories. "Mara and the 3 Foolish Kings," or one of the hundreds about Anla, the wise counselor, or something filled with glory and adventure, like The Great Hunt of the Horn, but always with a happy ending and a joyous homecoming. Yet if the land was peaceful around them, if no Trollocs appeared among the trees, no Drakkar among the clouds, it seemed to Rand that they managed to raise their tension themselves, whenever it was in danger of vanishing. There was the morning that Egwene awoke and began unbraiding her hair. Rand watched her from the corner of his eye as he made up his blanket roll. Every night when the fire was doused, everyone took to their blankets except for Egwene and the Aes Sedai. The 2 women always went aside from the others and talked for an hour or 2, returning when the others were asleep. Egwene combed her hair out, 100 strokes, he counted, while he was saddling Cloud, tying his saddlebags and blanket behind the saddle. Then she tucked the comb away, swept her loose hair over her shoulder, and pulled up the hood of her cloak. Startled, he asked, "What are you doing?" She gave him a sidelong look without answering. It was the first time he had spoken to her in 2 days, he realized, since the night in the log shelter on the bank of the Tarn. But he did not let that stop him. "All your life you've wanted to wear your hair in a braid, and now you're giving it up? Why? Because she doesn't braid hers?" "Aes Sedai don't braid their hair," she said simply. "At least, not unless they want to." "You aren't an Aes Sedai. You're Egwene Alvir from Emond's Field, and the women's circle will have a fit if they could see you now." "Women's circle business is none of yours, Randolph Thor. And I will be an Aes Sedai, just as soon as I reach Tar Valon." He snorted. "As soon as you reach Tar Valon? Why, Light, tell me that. You're no dark friend." "Do you think Moraine Sedai is a dark friend? Do you?" She squared around to face him with her fists clenched, and he almost thought she was going to hit him. "After she saved the village? After she saved your father?" "I don't know what she is, but whatever she is, it doesn't say anything about the rest of them. The stories—" "Grow up, Rand. Forget the stories and use your eyes." "My eyes saw her sink the ferry. Deny that." Once you get an idea in your head, you won't budge even if somebody points out you're trying to stand on water. If you're such a light-blinded fool, you'd see— Fool, am I? Let me tell you a thing or two, Randolph Thor. You are the muleyest, most wool-headed— You two trying to wake everybody inside 10 miles? The warder asked. Standing there with his mouth open, trying to get a word in edgewise, Rand suddenly realized he had been shouting. They both had. Egwene's face went scarlet to her eyebrows, and she spun away with a muttered, "Men." That seemed as much for the warder as for him. Warily, Rand looked around the camp. Everybody was looking at him, not just the warder. Matt and Perrin with their faces white. Tom tensed as if ready to run or fight. Moraine. The Aes Sedai's face was expressionless, but her eyes seemed to bore into his head. Desperately, he tried to recall exactly what he had said about Aes Sedai and dark friends. "It is time to be going," Moraine said. She turned to Aldib, and Rand shivered as if he had been let out of a trap. He wondered if he had been. 2 nights later, with the fire burning low, Matt kicked the last crumbs of cheese from his fingers and said, "You know, I think we've lost them for good." Lan was off in the night, taking a last look around. Moraine and Egwene had gone aside for one of their conversations. Tom was half dozing over his pipe, and the young men had the fire to themselves. Perrin, idly poking the embers with a stick, answered, "If we've lost them, why does Lan keep scouting?" Nearly asleep, Rand rolled over, his back to the fire. "We lost them back at Tarn Ferry." Matt lay back with his fingers laced behind his head, staring at the moon-filled sky. "If they were even really after us." "You think that Drakkar was chasing us because it liked us?" Perrin asked. "I say stop worrying about Trollocs and such," Matt went on, as if Perrin had not spoken, "and start thinking about seeing the world. We're out where the stories come from. What do you think a real city is like?" "We're going to Baerlon," Rand said sleepily, but Matt snorted. "Baerlon's all very well, but I've seen that old map Master Alvear has. If we turn south once we reach Camelin, the road leads all the way to Ilion and beyond." "What's so special about Ilion?" Perrin said, yawning. "For one thing," Matt replied, "Ilion isn't full of ice." A silence fell, and Rand was suddenly wide awake. Moraine had come back early. Egwene was with her, but it was the Aes Sedai standing at the edge of the firelight who held their attention. Matt lay there on his back, his mouth still open, staring at her. Moraine's eyes caught the light like dark, polished stones. Abruptly, Rand wondered how long she had been standing there. "The lads were just—" Tom began, but Moraine spoke right over the top of him. "A few days' respite, and you are ready to give up." Her calm, level voice contrasted sharply with her eyes. "A day or two of quiet, and already you have forgotten Winter Night." "We haven't forgotten," Perrin said. "It's just—" Still not raising her voice, the Aes Sedai treated him as she had the Gleeman. "Is that the way you all feel? You are all eager to run off to Ilion and forget about Trollocs and Halfmen and Drakkar." She ran her eyes over them. That stony glint playing against the everyday tone of voice made Rand uneasy. But she gave no one a chance to speak. "The Dark One is after you three, one or all. And if I let you go running off wherever you want to go, he will take you. Whatever the Dark One wants, I oppose. So hear this, and know it true. Before I let the Dark One have you, I will destroy you myself." It was her voice, so matter-of-fact, that convinced Rand. The Aes Sedai would do exactly what she said, if she thought it was necessary. He had a hard time sleeping that night, and he was not the only one. Even the Gleeman did not begin snoring till long after the last coals died. For once, Moraine offered no help. Those nightly talks between Egwene and the Aes Sedai were a sore point for Rand. Whenever they disappeared into the darkness, aside from the rest for privacy, he wondered what they were saying, what they were doing. What was the Aes Sedai doing to Egwene? One night, he waited until the other men had all settled down, Tom snoring like a saw cutting an oak knot. Then he slipped away, clutching his blanket around him. Using every bit of skill he had gained stalking rabbits, he moved with the moon shadows until he was crouched at the base of a tall leather-leaf tree, thick with tough, broad leaves, close enough to hear Moraine and Egwene, where they had sat on a fallen log with a small lantern for light. "Ask," Moraine was saying, "and if I can tell you now, I will. Understand there is much for which you are not yet ready. Things you cannot learn until you have learned other things, which require still others to be learned before them. But ask what you will." "The 5 powers," Egwene said slowly. "Earth, wind, fire, water, and spirit. It doesn't seem fair that men should have been strongest in wielding earth and fire. Why should they have the strongest powers?" Moraine laughed. "Is that what you think, child? Is there a rock so hard that wind and water cannot wear it away? A fire so strong that water cannot quench it, or wind snuff it out?" Egwene was silent for a time, digging her toe into the forest floor. They were the ones who tried to free the Dark One and the Forsaken, weren't they? The male Aes Sedai." She took a deep breath and picked up speed. "The women were not part of it. It was the men who went mad and broke the world." "You are afraid," Moraine said grimly. "If you had remained in Emond's Field, you would have become wisdom in time. That was Nynaeve's plan, was it not? Or you would have sat in the women's circle and managed the affairs of Emond's Field while the village council thought it was doing so. But you did the unthinkable. You left Emond's Field, left the 2 rivers seeking adventure. You wanted to do it, and at the same time you are afraid of it. And you are stubbornly refusing to let your fear best you. You would not have asked me how a woman becomes an Aes Sedai otherwise. You would not have thrown custom and convention over the fence otherwise." "No," Egwene protested. "I'm not afraid. I do want to become an Aes Sedai." "Better for you if you were afraid. But I hope you'll hold to that conviction. Few women these days have the ability to become initiates, much less have the wish to." Moraine's voice sounded as if she had begun musing to herself. "Surely never before 2 in one village. The old blood is indeed still strong in the 2 rivers." In the shadows, Rand shifted. A twig snapped under his foot. He froze instantly, sweating and holding his breath, but neither of the women looked around. "2?" Egwene exclaimed. "Who else? Is it Kari? Kari Thane? Laura Ayelin?" Moraine gave an exasperated click of her tongue, then said sternly, "You must forget I said that. Her road lies another way, I fear. Concern yourself with your own circumstances. It is not an easy road you have chosen." "I will not turn back," Egwene said. "Be that as it may. But you still want reassurance, and I cannot give it to you, not in the way you want." "I don't understand." "You want to know that Aes Sedai are good and pure, that it was those wicked men of the legends who caused the breaking of the world, not the women. Well, it was the men, but they were no more wicked than any men. They were insane, not evil. The Aes Sedai you will find in Tar Valon are human, no different from any other women except for the ability that sets us apart. They are brave and cowardly, strong and weak, kind and cruel, warm-hearted and cold. Becoming an Aes Sedai will not change you from what you are." Egwene drew a heavy breath. "I suppose I was afraid of that I'd be changed by the power. That and the Trollocs, and the Fade. And, Moraine Sedai, in the name of light, why did the Trollocs come to Emond's Field?" The Aes Sedai's head swung, and she looked straight at Rand's hiding place. His breath seized in his throat. Her eyes were as hard as when she had threatened them, and he had the feeling they could penetrate the leatherleaf's thick branches. Light, what will she do if she finds me listening? He tried to melt back into the deeper shadows. With his eyes on the women, a root snagged his foot, and he barely caught himself from tumbling into dead brush that would have pointed him out with a crackle of snapping branches like fireworks. Panting, he scrambled away on all fours, keeping silent as much by luck as by anything he did. His heart pounded so hard he thought that might give him away itself. Fool! Eavesdropping on an Aes Sedai! Back where the others were sleeping, he managed to slip in among them silently. Lan moved as he dropped to the ground and jerked his blanket up, but the warder settled back with a sigh. He had only been rolling over in his sleep. Rand let out a long, silent breath. A moment later, Moraine appeared out of the night, stopping where she could study the slumbering shapes. Moonlight made a nimbus around her. Rand closed his eyes and breathed evenly, all the while listening hard for footsteps coming closer. None did. When he opened his eyes again, she was gone. When finally sleep came, it was fitful and filled with sweaty dreams where all the men in Emmons Field claimed to be the Dragon Reborn, and all the women had blue stones in their hair like the one Moraine wore. He did not try to overhear Moraine and Egwene again.